I'm Tony Alexio, and this is this week's Minotaur Minute. Are the Taliban resurging in Afghanistan? Well, it looks like they very well could be. With the impending U.S. troop withdrawal after the new year, there's been a lot of more Taliban voices and actions and people coming out of the shadows. U.S. forces have already gone down from 14,000 to 4,500 in the country, and that is as a direct result of the U.S.-Taliban peace agreement that was signed a few months ago. The crux of the agreement, aside from a troop withdrawal, which will be even more so after the new year, was that the Taliban and the Afghan government, continue their own peace talks within the framework of peace itself, which means no group attacking each other. Well, the Taliban haven't really kept up that part of the deal. They've been beating up on Afghan government forces now for some time, to the point where the Afghan government is actually losing ground to the Taliban in a lot of cases. You know, the West has portrayed the Taliban as being defeated or scattered and out in the mountains in the countryside. They've never been defeated. They've never been scattered. They've been in the countryside. They've regrouped, and now they're headed back into the cities. They're not, they're on their way back to Kabul, and not even on their way back. They're there. They're not at the gates of the city. They're in the city at this point right now. And local Afghans, they know this score. And as we say in the U.S., this is not their first rodeo. They see what's coming down the pike. So they're starting to rearm themselves and get ready for what could very well be the Taliban marching through Kabul by summer of 21, unless something drastically changes, which I don't see it happening, considering the U.S. troops are leaving and Afghan government forces are so far unable to really stop the Taliban resurgence. So what does this look like right now? It looks like militias are recruiting young men all over the city to try to grow their numbers. It looks like Taliban-affiliated imams are preaching on street corners and in town squares and everywhere they can find, and there are more and more people listening to what they have to say, which makes sense. The world's been beaten up right now by COVID for the last year or so. Plus, life in Afghanistan is difficult as it is. So anybody that offers an alternative, a potential suggestion, or even a better way of living, perhaps, at least if you're desperate, that's what this may look like to you, you're going to listen. Look, the flavor in Afghanistan right now it seems to be a situation we had back in the late 1990s, which is the interwar period, right when the Soviets had left, and before the lines between the Taliban and the Northern Alliance back then were solidified. Well, we know how that ended. And then, the Taliban taking over eventually, and it was a few years of not good things going on in that country. We're headed back down that way, it looks like, again. And it's not, I'm not being hyperbolic here, and I'm not trying to exaggerate, but the Taliban are making some significant moves, and the recipe for this is all here. Major power pullout, increase in insurgents activity, increase in militant activity, a weak central government. It's all there right now. Militant Islam is on the rise generally right now around the world, and there's the Taliban they've never really gone away, but they are gaining strength and power, and they have moved into the cities. There could very well be a significant resurgence of militant Islam all over the world in 2021. There are definitely going to be one in Afghanistan. Especially with the U.S. troop withdrawal in Western Asia. We'll see how it turns out there, but I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but it's kind of doom and gloom for Afghanistan right now, at least in the short term, in the midterm, I should say. But on the flip side, though, if you want to look at 2020 overall, is 2020 the launch pad for the new Roaring 20s, this century's Roaring 20s? Well, as rough of a year as 2020 has been, years from now, you could be looking back at this and saying, man, 2020 was the launch pad of one of the biggest economic and productivity boosts the world has seen in over 100 years. Why? Well, there's a lot of stuff immediately on the horizon that's happening right now, a lot of cool stuff, too. The kickstart this thing, like GPT-3, for example, the Apple M1 chip that's going to revolutionize computing. Cryptocurrency is becoming much more mainstream, and innovations are happening left and right. With companies and with individuals. The economist Taylor Cohen, and some of you may have heard of him, he coined the term the Great Stagnation. And it was a term describing the stagnation and the malaise in productivity and wages that has gripped the West over the last 30 or so odd years. Well, Cohen right now is saying that we're about the end of that at this point right now, and technology is ripe at this point to create what he calls a J-curve in productivity, a J-curve, completely shooting right up. And why are we looking at that right now? Because corporations are investing in infrastructure and in technologies right now. And the World Economic Forum is actually underscoring what Taylor is saying. They found that more than 80% of global firms at this point either have or are planning to accelerate the digitization of business and to grow remote work by another 50%. That's the one thing with COVID we saw in 2020 is that, in the end, that meeting could in fact have been an email. Remote work has proven to be a viable way to get the job done. Productivity is still there, and employees tend to be happier when they're able to work where they want to work, and people of that nature. So the increased automation will allow that more. Will allow an increase in productivity, an increase in stuff being made, an increase in things moving forward, an increase in technological advances. But there's a rub in this. There's always a rub. And the rub is that if these gains do not filter down to employees of the company, to the workers, or if because of technological advances, jobs get automated and employees are not given new jobs to do. The jobs themselves that get automated aren't replaced. They could have the exact opposite effect of what's going to be happening here. That would create a situation where there would be much more inequality between the haves and the have-nots of the world, which would also significantly deepen our political divide that we have right now. I want to be optimistic about this. I'd like to think that as technology moves forward, things will get better overall, and productivity will increase. And I think the 20s are set to be a very exciting decade. Look, despite what things feel like today, we are living truly in exciting, revolutionary times. We may not feel it right now, but we really are. Historically, when things like this have happened, wars, pestilence, pandemics, economic disasters, the other side of that usually is a big leap forward. And I think we're poised in this world for this decade to be that. After this much sustained hardship, I would hope that would be the case. Anyway, that's the Minotaur Minute for this week and for this year. We want to thank you very much for listening to us in 2020. We look forward to working with you again in 2021. We wish you nothing but the very best for the new year. Health, happiness, and prosperity. Thanks very much. Hopefully see you again next year.